So, let's go back to Molly's room and continue. We have a cat outside. Coincidence, right? It's clearly not Molly's cat. Molly's cat was there in 1947. This is a different one. I bet Molly came out here too. That's why they had to put the chain on the window. Molly was a climber. And I presume Molly did love cats. So I would be guessing that Molly pretended to be a cat quite a bit. That's why there's that picture of her out in the hallway with like the cat nose and the cat ears, because she liked to pretend to be a cat, which is probably why she was climbing the big tree and why they had to put the chain on the window to stop her getting out, and maybe why in that dream or hallucination or whatever it was, that was her first go-to, was being a cat. Like, a cat is all about escape. If you daydream about being a cat, I think there's a fair chance you're daydreaming about escaping. Especially when you're upstairs like this. It would take a cat to get out of this place. She wanted to escape, so I think she was a rather lonely child.
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly.
To me, that means that, like when Edith said that at the start, my mum never told me any of these stories, I was thinking maybe her mum didn't know these stories, but obviously her mum did know that one. Her mum knew about Molly pretending to be a cat, which doesn't mean that she'd read the diary. It might just be that Molly often pretended to be a cat.
I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room.
I find this a little bit macabre. Pictures of birds. Like, it's sort of borderline a cool idea. It's exactly the same as the bedrooms. It's like you don't reuse the cage. You put the photo in the cage, give it its little memorial, and get a whole new cage. So when there was a new bird, like, did they go in a cage here next to all the empty cages? Or did they just come into this room after? And I guess the crochet was Edie as well. Interesting how books just get used as, like, not as books, not as things that contain knowledge that you might want to read there. Like, they had the TV on books, and here we've got the photos resting on books, which makes it very clear that this is one of these two. It's Edie, probably. Edie or Sven who did this. Not Dawn, because I was thinking maybe it was Dawn who was piling up the books, but no, Dawn would never have done that in here, in Edie's room, with these, like, what is a memorial, yes, but almost like a shrine, candles, and like they've got that feel to them. They've like become sacred. And having just said that, I never saw that book before, but look at that. shrine sketches. They are shrines. That's what these are. And she must have sat here with them all on each side of her, maybe looking out the window. They are shrines. That's what she's done.
Edie knit me a new pair of gloves every year, just in time to replace the old ones.
That's that rocking chair that she's sitting in there. So she was also here with all the... I mean, I'm thinking that is Edith, sorry. That is Edith. So she was here with all the stuff.
Lewis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him.
That makes sense. That's what she would do. As somebody who has played this game through to the end, one thing I think everybody who plays it through is trying to get into Edie's head. She lived a long time, Edie did. And she's an artist. She does a lot of art stuff. Very creative, yes, but I was going to say not imaginative. I don't think, was she imaginative but not creative? Because what she has done is, like, she's not invented things out of her own head. What she has done is reproduce something that's already there. She has reinterpreted it, which is creative, and she's definitely artistic, very artistic, there's no doubt. But it's all commemorative. It's... I guess that's all I'm saying. It's the theme, perpetuating the theme. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of cool. I wish I could see that a bit better. That's Walter's room. And that is... What is that? I don't know if that's any clearer to anyone else, but it looks like that might be Sven, her husband. I don't know. Or is that her? On a ladder. Doing something too far from that wall. I can't quite figure out what's being done there. I think that ladder is kind of near the wall, so I think it's turning Walter's room into an underwater thing. And guessing that's Edie as a child, well, as a girl or maybe a young adult, but definitely a girl. Who's that? Ingeborg, perhaps, because in the... down here we've got Odin and we've got Ingeborg. I don't know, I'm just going by the age of the photo, like it looks like an old one. That's a lovely picture. A model of their house. So they've got their house, and then they've got the mailbox, and then they've got this. And
her room was like a museum.
Yes, it really is. Here is Odin. Edie's father, so this is Edith's great-great-grandfather, who was an author, and I kind of find that cool. He wrote these 2 books, which I looked it up online. Somebody else did the research, not my research, but somebody did look into these 2. This one's about death, and this one is also about death. Like, there was a poem, I think. They found a poem that had this as a quote in it. So he was kind of death obsessed. Which isn't terribly unusual when people get older, especially when they've dealt with grief. But anyway, as somebody who writes, I'm always interested to see authors. I don't quite know what those little, like, circle triangle things are.
For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan.
It's so sad.
On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind. But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery.
And there's the house getting put up behind.
His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house.
I have feelings here too I have thoughts, not so much feelings. I do have feelings because I love houses, and I think it's incredible that he decided to bring it across the ocean, and it does show that he was very rich, and I guess they brought family money with them. If you are going to come to Washington and get shipwrecked at Orcas Island, you wouldn't necessarily just find yourself land, so presumably they'd already bought it. So they weren't really struggling, except that he lost his wife Ingeborg, so he is grieving. He's lost his son Johan, and I wonder when this was. There's no clue. How old was Edie when this happened? How much older than her brother Johan was she? It's tragic that happened, but it's hardly indicative of ill fortune in the family, because it happened to so many. It's not singling that family out particularly. Childbirth was so fraught with danger for women everywhere. I do have sympathy for him, but I do wonder how old Edie was. And how much time is there between this and this? Because this is 1937, but presumably he didn't decide to come to America until after Ingeborg died. You couldn't do this instantly. It would take years to detach your house from its foundation and find a way to ship it across. You'd probably have to build that barge that it's on, surely, and find the cranes and find the crew that was willing to work with this. That's not the work of an instant. So he decided to do this. They were in the process, and presumably Edie got married halfway through that operation and decided to come, because Molly must have been born afterwards, after Odin had made the plan. There's so many ways it can go, but I feel like it's a presentation of several facts. As someone who does a lot of family tree, we are presenting several facts together to create a story, but there are gaps. There are other things that happened in the middle. There are other ways you could tell this tale. That is what I love about this game, is that's what it is showing. The What Remains of Edith Finch narrative is all about interpretation, and in many ways cherry-picking events to make something look a certain way. And that's, as I read it, I'll come back to that, but that is what I see as happening here, because I do like to put myself in people's shoes with these things, and I think, how old was Edie when Johan died? When Edie lost her mum, was she 3 years old? Was she... Can't go back, can I? Can I go back? No, I have to go on. Whoops. So we start off with a family story here, and every every family used to do this. The idea that your family is special. And, like, your family is special. It should be special. There should be a family story. That's, like, the legacy of the family is, I really think, crucial in the world. You need a connection to your family. And it's nice to think that your family has given you something, skills, or there's some sort of scaffolding there around you to help you make your way in the world, and the family provides that. So, like, it's one of those wonderful stories that you do get. It's particularly, I think, relevant when you leave your home. It's an interesting phenomena that it's diaspora that do family history far more than people in their original countries. People in England do, but not the way people who've moved away do. People in Australia, people in the United States, people want to know where they came from. They want to know their roots. If you are still living in your native England or France or Russia or whatever, you don't have that need because you grew up with it all around you. So what we've got here is an immigrant family who has come to the United States, and they inevitably feel displaced, uprooted, because they are. They are. And so it's quite natural that Edie, on arriving in the United States, is going to feel very alien, especially if she comes from a wealthy family and she is used to having the people around her know that she comes from a wealthy family. So she's going to build up a story. It's her protection, it's her comfort. It helps her through the tough times because this is cushioning around her, this family. It's a little barrier to help her through. She knows she's a bit special because she's got it. It helps you feel less homesick because you've brought it with you. You haven't actually left it all behind. You've got it with you. So I absolutely see how she could have felt that. It was Odin's idea to do this, I presume, although we don't know this. She might have come along because she'd lost her mother and she didn't want to lose her father too. And then she did lose him anyway on the journey, so then she's here in the new home, about to make her way alone. So that is one reading you can take from all this, from this little reel, from the origins of the Finches in the United States. It's really hard to get a feel for the time period we're looking at here. So at this point, she's an adult, and she does have a husband and a child. She's not alone. She's old enough to see this crowd and to realise that they are the centre of attention and that everybody has come to see them off, and to know what she's losing here. She really was someone important in Norway. Yep. This is an absolute tragedy, but did it happen? We don't know, do we? 40-foot waves. I don't know Washington. I don't know if that's likely or not. I feel that in 1937, sailors were pretty good at figuring out when storms were coming by then. I think there may be a touch of exaggeration here, although we do know that some of this is fact because we're in the house, we see things. Odin died and the house sank. Edie, Sven and Molly come ashore. They're not alone. I presume that the men in the background are the sailors, because it looks like the one on the right-hand side has just put an item of furniture on the ground, so I guess they're bringing the furniture from the old house. But it is interesting, isn't it, that here they are arriving and there's already a camera, there's already a photograph being taken. How do you set up a picture like that? They have not just rolled in from the boat in the middle of a storm with 40-foot waves to have this picture taken. Here we are in the land of influencers, TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, etc. We're very familiar with these set-up pictures that are staged to look as if they're spontaneous, as if they're occurring in the moment. I do find that interesting, that's all. Who took the picture? And that is just incredible. What a monument. I do think, and this is just my thought, like, interpret these things the way we want. That's the nature of the game. I do feel that we're seeing a lot of Edie here. Edie was used to being the centre of attention, and the very fact that she has put herself into Odin's memorial here, Odin's crypt, she has put herself and her husband and I think her child, I can't tell from this picture, but I think her child as well. She is the one there that is in the protective position. She is the one that is keeping that family together, holding them back while Odin gallantly goes down with his house. Edie is coming across here as being a bit at the centre of her own world. Ditto here. Like, who's taking the picture? It's fair enough, you know, they've probably met people, they've probably got friends, they've undoubtedly got staff working for them. It just has another look of a stage picture. Molly is very slightly older there, I guess. It's fair enough that they would look very happy now. This is probably a few months later than the other. And that's it. Sorry, I went over that so much.
Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Beginnings are just so important. We can't get behind that, but it's a good beginning. When I did the family tree, the first thing I did was I took all our lines back to whoever came to Australia, because, you know, a lot of my lines came from elsewhere. I wanted to know who the emigrating ancestor was in each line. And it's interesting to see how people interact with a new home, what they bring. Okay. So he came here, he wrote these 2 books. I find that interesting, actually. He wrote these 2 books in Norway, but he wrote them in English. I presume that, honestly, I would presume that Edie had them republished here after his death. Had a translation published, because if you're in Norway in 1935, I mean, maybe you'd publish them internationally, but I don't think many Norwegian books were, right? I reckon Edie had them republished. All the same, that's cool. He was already fairly death obsessed, which may be the environment that Edie grew up in. And I guess that's him as a younger person and him as an older person. I know, I'm labouring this, taking a long time.
Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious.
Which I think is another clue about Edie's personality, that she liked the press. She was comfortable with the press. Whatever fantasy stories she told, because she said the thing about the dragon, she likes to embellish a little. Can't quite see that picture. Can't quite see what that is. How did you go to bed in there and have all them looking at you?
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't.
I'll get over there in a minute. Sam and Kay's wedding. Dawn poetry recital. Edith. Edith interview. Interesting.
I hadn't thought of myself as Edith Jr. for a long long time.
So that's chapter 7, Edith interview, and that's chapter... Oh no, that could be a 7 as well, I'm not sure. Sam Photo Award. Weird America, the Finches. See, that it's very public. My Friend Bigfoot. That's Barbara's movie. Molly Concepts. Mural sketches. Barbara Concepts. I find that interesting that, like, we've got Barbara Concepts and Molly Concepts. I haven't spotted any other concepts. Like, is that because they're girls? Is that because... Is that for their bedrooms? Is that like bedroom because she decorated their bedrooms? But you'd expect a Walter Concepts.
One summer, they evacuated the island, but Edie refused to go. For a few weeks, she was a celebrity.
Yeah, see, she refused to go, but she was happy to have a photo taken for the newspaper while she refused to go. Look at that house with no massive ramshackle thing on the side. So, 1917. That was 89. So what had happened in 89? She was pretty close to on her own in the house at that point. I'm just looking at all the dates of death. There was still Walter. Anyway. The illusion of life on memory. See, I think this game just gives so many hints about the whole thing. That's just what I'm saying. Memory is such an interesting thing. You just cherry pick items and the memory can be quite different. The illusion of life. This is what's here is a creation of an illusion. Odin Finch's story on that reel is an absolute creation. It's an illusion. It's an illusion presented through cherry picking the photos that are in there. We don't know how long there was between those times, and we don't know what else happened. Like, if he decided to take his house on that boat and go to America, and he'd bought that land in Washington, which I don't know, but I would imagine that even in the 1930s, that was probably expensive land. Like, I don't know, I'm guessing. But he was looking to a new world there. Did Sven marry Edie because she was going to be going with him and he didn't want to lose her? Like, all of those things. That could have been an absolute fairy tale in itself, that she was going to go with her father because she didn't want to leave her father alone. And maybe Sven married her rather than lose her. As well as that, do we know whether maybe... As well as that, what was behind all of Odin's wealth? Like, maybe he was a crook. And maybe he was about to be found out. Maybe his company's dodgy dealings were about to be uncovered, or maybe his perfectly legitimate, respectable business was about to go under for different reasons. I have not looked up the history of the time, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are events around there about, I don't know, tax changes or something. But whatever it is, the thing is, you create the tale you want to tell with what you include. Which is why when you do genealogy and family history, you really have to get behind all that to figure out who is saying what and why. I mean, same with regular history. history is a fascinating thing because it's very subjective even when people try to be objective. And when people are not trying to be objective, it can be very much fiction. Quite an interesting thing. So yes, here is Edie's library. The camera... In Search of Lost Time. Mummification. What's that one? Something... Shadows of a Fleeting World. Tale of Tales. Yeah, it's all there. It's all... There's another copy of Odin's book. Yeah, fascinating stuff, I think. That this game has so much in it like this. It's so much presentation. That's a great picture. I presume that's Edie's wedding. Yeah, and there's Odin. And would that be Ingeborg? If that is Edie... Nah, because I was thinking that if that was Ingeborg, then Edie was an adult before she died. So I don't think that is. I like to know these things, and I don't. That door is pretty cool. Wonder what that's about. The door of the old house, maybe. Then we've got the blueprints. There they are. I'm guessing that's them. Oh, another of the door. Tragedy strikes at something. Finch family. Oh, tragedy strikes at Finch family pond. See, they're in the paper again. They're just always in the paper. A lot of places had these little papers and they only had a small readership. The readership was local, so their focus was local. It's not like the New York Times printing an article about the Finches. This is the local paper, but all the same they really did play to the local paper, and I think that was Edie with her family pride. So that happened, I can't quite see, when did he die? Oh, we don't have his death date. It was on the door. I'll have to have a look later. But after he died, it just stayed out there. And I guess she wasn't strong enough to remove it herself, but... Yeah. Oh. Oh, there we go. See, on my first playthrough, I had this theory that... Because Edie lived so long, and none of the rest did. And I was thinking, she's killing them. I know that's another reading that some people have, that, yeah, she killed everybody. She is actually a murderer. And I did wonder, did she kill him? But we've got this picture here which kind of seems to prove that she was right down below. She wasn't a part of it. And I mean, why would she kill him when he did so much? Great slide though. It's such a shame it didn't work. Such a shame. Maybe it was just an accident. I know, I'm going so slow here. It's the first chance I've had to really look around like this though. Alright, let's carry on. Built 1937, Edith Finch.
Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
Is that here? Yeah, it is. Interesting, the birds aren't there. That's really cool the way they've got the birds coming out of the picture, but I don't think... Oh no, they are there. is the bathroom. It is a nice bathroom.
The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife, Kay, left on the house was the pink bathroom. It was a pretty big trace.
It is quite spectacular. So what's that? Just a cleaning product. Someone was sitting in there cleaning. Oh. Guess that's all of Edie's medication. I had this thought. No, I still have this thought. The door is sealed out there, and it was sealed... Obviously, it was sealed at the time that Milton vanished, because Edith said downstairs, when we first went upstairs, Edith said her mum sealed up the doors when Milton vanished, and then Edie retaliated by drilling peepholes. So since Edie's room is sealed up, she must have sealed it up when Sven died. That's what I think. She stopped coming in here. So these are her medications from... Oh, no. I kept going there to see when Sven died, and I don't remember what year he died. Of course, these could also be... I can't see a name on them. These could also be Sven's. Very hard to know. It kind of looks like there should be a mirror there. Taken all the mirrors away so I can't see myself. I wonder if Edie had an issue with mirrors. And we've got our bottle of alcohol, which is interesting, isn't it? I presume it's alcohol. Where did they go to the bathroom after this was sealed up?
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book. Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
That's a good picture. What's that? I don't quite know. That is... So it looks like he printed himself like a photo book, because they look like they're all copies of a book that he did. If it was him, it might not have been him. Following the family tradition of publishing books. Oh, Milton was here. Interesting. What on earth is that doing there? Are they all like alcohol? Oh. Whiskey. Interesting. Yeah, I saw them before and I really was wondering like who was consuming it, and I was thinking, was it Milton? I mean, Milton was 11, wasn't he, when he went missing, so you would expect that it wasn't. But I mean, children can, but I don't think it was Milton. I do think it might have been another person. It's very hard to know because like there's a couple of options, but I have my thoughts. Couple turns land into a native reserve. My guess is that that's their land. It's such an interesting delineation. Like, they're sharing a room. They've each got their side. And it's kind of nice. Although you wonder why they were sharing a room and didn't get their own rooms. But I think because they were twins, and I think, like in the parents' mind, twins go together. But they're also very sharply delineated. And I don't think that's from personality. I also think that he doesn't look particularly happy there. You know, when I first saw this picture, I thought they were in trouble. It looked like they were getting lectured. But now I can see that they're getting measured at the door. Odin Finch National Park. Everything in this world is a commemoration. It's kind of clever, and it can work. Like, you can really cement a family this way. So much family pride. You can. It can go both ways. It can be good. It can be toxic. Depending on whether people can be themselves inside of it or not. I'm not convinced that these guys could. I might be wrong, but I just don't think they had much of a chance.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him.
So cool.
I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom, and he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again, and he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Calvin! I'm not gonna tell you again!
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother.
Cast on his leg.
The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
I mean, it's so relatable. Hasn't everybody looked at a swing and wondered what it would be like to take it all the way around? And people break limbs doing that, and that swing was right on a cliff. Something that this game does that is really kind of spooky is it makes you do the actions. Like, you basically have to kill them, like, by being them. And it's a truly tragic thing that he died like that. If he did, if this wasn't just a story, if it wasn't maybe that he actually just liked the swing, and so Edie, who seems to have set up all the shrines, gave him a story, or gave everybody a story about him on the swing, dying, doing something he loved. And the really macabre thing about that is that it's not the loving act that it seems. To take something that's restorative and happy and make it an agent of death is just really, I mean, I was going to say evil, but presumably it's not deliberate. It's twisted. It is just twisted in itself. So even if you view this game as this is Edie making up stories to give them a kind of end to the one they really have, whatever that may be, then it's still really twisted, because you're taking that happy moment and like removing it and corrupting it. I think that's what has brought me back to the game this time, that strange idea that you take that moment of happiness and it becomes something miserable, which, if this is an insight into Edie's mind, then that is not good. Like, not a good insight. You are seeing a mind that is in need of help, very much in need of help. Everybody has times when you do this, when you like sabotage the good with your dark thoughts. As I said, on my first playthrough, I thought, no, Edie's killing them, so I thought she's actually deliberately sabotaged the swing. And then I thought, some people, like the curse theory, there really is a curse. It's killing everybody. Like, that's perfectly valid too. I don't want to think that, because I like the idea of families having some agency and people having some agency, but I think even the most pragmatic view, which is that Edie is kind of making up the way they died, and maybe none of them, like maybe there's a genetic fault in the family line, like a mutation that is killing them all young that she doesn't want to admit to. We don't know. But even if something as banal as that is the case, the making up of these stories and having them die doing something harmless and wholesome is a greater corruption than anything else that could be done. That's what I think. But yeah. And I think if that's the case, then we get to a different kind of neglect and abuse on all these children, which is the other reading, is that Edie and Sven were both just very neglectful parents. Shutting Molly in without dinner in a room that had toxic things in it, that is very neglectful. But it was something done at the time that you would shut somebody in. And if they don't have much imagination, like I'm saying that Edie is creative, but maybe not Like, she's artistic, but she's not inventive. What she does is kind of very traditional. So maybe she doesn't have the imagination to think, well, if I send a child to bed hungry, inevitably they're going to not be able to sleep and they'll go looking around the room for something they can eat. Like, she might not think that. But the thing is that once that's happened once, would you go on with that? Would you go on thinking that and making that same mistake over and over? There's definitely something going on, because having memorialised her child, and this is where those books in her room come back into it, I think. She's memorialised these children in this way. She's made them perfect. They are perfect through death. This is their ideal. And now here they are in their perfect bedrooms that has absolutely everything you could want, and they're never going to mess them up, and they're never going to play in them. It's just perfect. These children had the ideal childhood once they're dead. But definitely not while they're alive, because look at Calvin on the swing. He had that broken leg. And there he is saying, I'll die before I eat another mushroom. He was obviously forced to eat foods he didn't like, which is awful. My mum had that too. My mum is lactose intolerant, and as a child she was forced to drink a glass of milk every morning before school, and she used to vomit. But she got punished for vomiting because for some reason her mother thought she was doing that to misbehave. So she would hold it in until she got to the bus stop, ready to catch the bus for school, and vomit there if she could. I say the same thing here. Calvin didn't like mushrooms. He had to eat them. Their lives were not perfect. However it might look now with this beautiful setup.
After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
And, I mean, would children actually have this complete separation in their interests? Like, children are interested in different things, but my memories of siblings is there are things you don't like doing together, but you often do play together with your joint interests. And none of that is here. Each
Mom
one of
said
them...
Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Each of these children has an interest. Now, Sam has two. He's got the military and he's got photography, so I guess that's because he got older. But I bet Calvin liked a lot more than just space. I bet Calvin was also, I don't know, I mean, obviously he liked swings, he liked maybe sport, he might have liked climbing, he might have liked collecting starfish, but none of those. He got one interest for his room. It's a set piece. The whole room is a set piece. And poor Sam had to live with this. After his brother died, there Sam is, working out how he's responsible for the death. And he has to not only share a room, but if he lies in this bed, he is looking at that empty bed that's been roped off. That's just cruel. Interesting that he took up taxidermy, because he's got 3 interests there.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
I don't think I actually saw that. I didn't pay attention to that. I don't think I'll go out there yet, but Nice to know that that's there. What's that? Child stars. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't spot that before.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
I'm going to stop it here, call this the end of part 2. This is taking me a long time, but it is interesting. I'm picking up so much more.